It is a very, very polite group of people on this call who have not availed themselves of their right to edit this particular slideshow. And so thank you all for leaving the slideshow intact while we're going through this. But now I would like for you to edit the slideshow in any way you like, all of you, all at once. So if you'd like to change some text, if you'd like to add a slide on your own, if you'd like to add or delete an image, there are 50 people who can do this. I can see one of you, Deborah, just created a new slide. Let's just take 30 seconds or a minute for everybody just to go nuts on this slideshow.
Well, not totally nuts.
You can actually go
let's
well,
keep it clean.
yeah, okay, touche. Definitely close your presentation window because you can't edit it in the presentation view. But once you get back to the same view that I'm looking at, you should be able to edit the file. Who are you calling corny looking? I like that. Basically, Google Presentation, you have the ability to have 50 simultaneous collaborators on a presentation. And so since I, by name, hit every single person inside of my Google Apps install, all of you have the ability to add things, delete things as you like. Oh, here's a good image. A man. This image definitely needs a caption. Autumn is my favorite time of year. Okay, so we're gonna have 30 more seconds of free-for-all editing, and then I'm going to show you something useful. So you might think that having all these different collaborators on a document could make things incredibly unwieldy, and especially if I were to share this document with a whole bunch of people and go off and come back and discover that it had been changed radically in a bunch of different ways. I might want to actually revert back to a previous version of the document. So let me very kindly ask everyone to stop. And we'll see if some of this is not quite what we would want in a presentation. This is a horse built by a committee, I think. So let's I can go back to a previous version, and the way I would do that is by clicking on the File menu, and then say See Revision History. And what I see here is every one of, it appears that there are 90 edits that have been made of all of these different users. And it actually won't even show them all to me in one screen. I have to go forward or go backwards. So I can go all the way back to my very, very, very first, I have to click through all these screens actually. Very, very first, set of slides. So I can see that, this slide was originally created 37 minutes ago, and I was done with my edits of it by 20 minutes ago. And then, Deborah and Brian and Diana and everybody else sort of jumped in it and started playing around. And I can actually go back to revision 15, which was my presentation before people began playing around with it. And I can actually sort of, see this version. Actually, that's probably not the right one. Yeah. Well, let's try it. And if I click on Revert to this version, it will, sorry everyone, I've just trampled all over your art. But now we are back to the original 3-slide version with the bug and captions that I created. So right out from underneath you as all 50 of you were playing around with the document, I was able to revert it back to its original state. And so if and I can even pick a different. I can fast forward to revision 96. Actually, it doesn't look like it's going to let me go back to my most recent revision. Oh, actually, yes. When I clicked on revision 96, that's the current revision. I can revert back to a version that has a few modifications to it. Basically, the entire history of changes to that document have been saved, and so that's just a really cool feature that Google installed to make collaboration really smooth and seamless, and it's very powerful and fun to work with. One thing that you might want to keep in mind about this, and this is the last thing that I'll say about revision histories before switching to questions. If you have a file that, or if you have a document that has a long revision history attached to it, you might want to make sure that there's nothing in previous versions of the file that subsequent users wouldn't be suitable to see. So if this was like a super secret photograph, for example, and I were to delete this photograph and basically forget that it had been in there, and then subsequently invited a new user to have edit access over this document, that user would be able to see everything that was in the revision history for the document. So I would have made a mistake because even though the current version of the document doesn't have anything problematic in it for that user, previous versions did, and so that when you're thinking about who should view what information in the context of Google Docs, you should think about the entire history of the file in addition to its current state. So that was just a little quick observation. So now is a great time for questions.
Question from the chat room. Is the revision history available only for collaborative edits, or is it available for your own private documents?
Oh, I mean, no, it's certainly available for your own private documents. Absolutely. I mean, by all means. Yeah, the revision history and the sharing and collaboration features are I show them to you simultaneously just because they work nicely together. But you certainly don't need to have collaborators in order to have a revision history. Basically, if I had a document that I spent a long time revising that wasn't shared with anyone, if I looked at the revision history, I would just see each one of my edits being applied sequentially. So I'd be able to, revert to a previous version. But the person under the editor column would just be me the whole time.
And I have a question from Taylor in the chat room. Have you used the file sharing or computer sharing option in GoToMeeting or other options like Adobe Connect so collaborators don't have to open a new window?
No, I've never done those things, so I can't speak to them. But I mean, there's about 20 other people on the call who have. I mean, so if any of y'all would like to speak to GoToMeeting that issue, go ahead, please.
Okay. Another question from Net Ingenuity. Can you revert to an older version and then revert back to a newer version?
Actually, just did that. The version that I have live right now is the most recent version it was the version that was in existence when I asked everyone to stop their editing. So yeah, I mean you have some flexibility with that. It's actually kind of funny because when you delete a Google document, it is gone forever. Google makes no promise for you ever to be able to see that document again. So when you actually do delete something, you should take it seriously. However, in the context of a document itself, you have all this flexibility in terms of revision histories. A piece of text that I delete inside of my document now is still going to be there for a long time, even if I don't see it on the screen. So it's just sort of an ironic inversion of how things work in the Microsoft world.
Do you mind if I go back to the very beginning of the class and ask you some other questions?
I'd love that.
Okay. Can you please repeat the initial steps of putting your docs on the cloud?
Sure. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, basically what you do is you pull up your Google Docs window. In this case, it's the Google Docs for the coffeekooks.com. I would actually get there by typing in docs.coffeekooks.com, and then it redirects to this sort of long and cumbersome URL. If I'm just using a non-apps version of Docs where like if I were looking at my personal Google Docs account, I would just type in docs.google.com. And then there's this upload button right here. And if you click on upload, it gives you this little link right here that says select files to upload. And so what I did earlier was I selected some files to upload, and I'm going to reselect those same files again. So what I did here inside of this coffee directory was I selected a single file, and then I shift clicked on the last file of the list, and that had the effect of selecting all the files that I wanted to upload. And then I click on open, and actually I'm going to go ahead and upload these again. I'm removing the big files, and then I just click on start upload, and that's how it works. It's pretty straightforward. And as I said earlier, one of the problems is one of the things you might want to be tempted to do would be to select a folder and hope that Google that this feature would select all the files inside of the folder, and then select all of the files inside of a folder that's inside of a folder. Google it doesn't work quite like that. You've got to individually select files. So that's that.
And a question from, thank you. A question from Geff in the chat room. Since it's a free service, does Google have access to all of your content?
That's a wonderful question. We're going to, they certainly have access to it because it's on their computers, but they have an elaborate privacy policy, which I am going to talk about in greater detail in the next session 4, especially because we're going to talk about Gmail, and one of the things that makes Gmail different is that you'll get contextual ads based on the context of your mail messages. And some bot would have to read your mail in order to be able to provide the contextual ads. But it's a bigger issue than I'd like to tackle in a 10-second blurb. But we're going to have a whole section next unit about what is the privacy and what sorts of expectations should that give us. What is the privacy policy? What sorts of expectations should that policy give us about the extent to which our data is private?
I have a question from GoToWebinar. It's he would like you to address how best to share to share with a client who may have multiple Google accounts. How best should he share documents? Should they be shared to all the Gmail accounts?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's this is really a matter of judgment. I mean, there's certainly nothing wrong with just adding names to the sharing area. We talked about this in greater detail in earlier classes. But if I just go to share and then sharing settings, I have 50 people added to this as having edit rights on this document, and I know that like with the presentations that I have for this particular class, I created it on my personal Google account. I have it shared with my Coffee Kooks Google account, and I have it shared with a fake account that I created on Coffee Kooks just to test things. So if you have a client, by all means, plug in all of that person's email addresses in terms of giving them edit permissions or view permissions.
Does the sharing happen just on a document by document basis, or can the sharing happen for an account?
Well,
all the documents.
Right. And I mentioned this in my previous class. The best way to sort of avoid having to share a whole bunch of avoid having to tweak the sharing settings for each file you create is to create folders. And so, this, let me go back to my Google Docs here. I have something that says folders shared with me. And, this is my Google Apps class folder, which is owned by my personal Google account, but which is shared with my Coffee Kooks account. And so what happens is if I want to create a document in either account, what I would save that document and then drag it to this folder. So for example, this, I'm just picking a random document, this coffee tea document. Right now, this document has a little lockbox to it. It's not shared. It's completely private. I can drag this file into my Google Apps class folder. And now if I go to the Google Apps class folder, you can see that the sharing has changed on this particular file. It's for me and 5 other collaborators, and that's because there are 5 collaborators who have access to this folder. So you don't actually need to use folders inside of Google Docs. You can just let your files pile up. But if you have sort of, a subtle sharing regime that you want to manage, create a folder, make sure that the settings are just as you want it to be in terms of editing and viewing rights, and then any sort of new document that you create, save it and then drag it to that folder, and suddenly all of the permissions will be applied.
And Sachin in chat would like to know if the document and the presentation can be syndicated as feed.
Well, a lot of stuff can be syndicated as feed. I don't know if one of the things that you can do is I can't remember exactly where it is. I think under my goodness, there's an option for notifying me by email anytime this document has been changed, and I'm not off the top of my head remembering where it is. I don't think there's an RSS. You might be asking about RSS syndication for the documents, and I don't think that that's available. But I wish I could remember off the top of my head. It might be under published, but there are options for notifying you whenever somebody has made a change to the document.
I have a couple more questions if you want to keep going.
Sure, we're going over time, but I'm happy to continue.
Okay. So I'm not really sure how to pronounce it, but June Vergma would like to know if the cloud docs are physically stored in some physical folder on some server, or are they just mapped bits in some huge SQL database I'm given access to?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Who knows? I mean, there's some, and this is one of the things. There's some guarantees about physical redundancy that are baked into the license agreement for Google Apps. But in terms of, what is the file system that they're using, or are they using a database? I couldn't tell you. I'd love to know. I'm sure it's proprietary. But
Another quick question from Darcy out of curiosity. Do you have access to your stuff in Google Apps from an Android phone? Do you have any idea?
I'm sure, yes. Brian, do you have any comment on that?
I actually haven't seen much of a way to access them as editing. I believe you can access them as view only, but I haven't done much on my phone because it's too small of a space. I know that you can't you can edit spreadsheets but not formulas on an iPad, and you can read only documents, Word documents on your iPad, but you cannot edit them yet.
I have an iPod Touch that I use, which is kind of like I would see the same thing with an iPod Touch that I see with an iPhone. And I know that when I pull up my Google Docs, I generally have view but not edit capabilities, even if I have edit access, to my, in terms of the file itself. But that's just, that's just something you'll have to check out with individual devices. And I would certainly expect any device that didn't give you edit access now to be able to provide that tomorrow.